Welcome to the Transformative Neurotherapy podcast with your host, Dr. Heather Putney, founder and executive director of Transformative Neurotherapy. This is the place where healing happens faster. Because let's face it, your brain doesn't come with an owner's manual until now. Here, we take a holistic approach to brain health, bringing together science, mind-body harmony, and the tools you need to optimize your well-being. Whether you're a high performer, executive, athlete, longevity hacker, or just someone tired of your brain working against you, Dr. Putney is here to help you unlock your full potential. From brain fog to chronic stress, we're covering it all so you can finally experience brain health, mind harmony, and total well-being. Ready to get unstuck? Let's get started.
EEG mapping turns brainwaves into personalized roadmaps for healing and performance. Dr. Putney explains how. Welcome, everyone. I'm Millie M., co-host and producer here in the studio with Dr. Heather Putney, founder and executive director of Transformative Neurotherapy. How are you, Dr. Putney?
I'm doing well.
It's a mouthful for me sometimes. Excited to be back with you today. Tell us, how does EEG mapping personalize treatment?
Yeah, well, EEG mapping. So EEG is called an electroencephalogram, which is, kind of a big mouthful in of itself. But basically what it means is, I'm going to show you my fun little cap here. And this is what we use to collect an EEG. That's the back of it. It looks pretty similar either way. But I'm even going to slide it on so you can kind of see what we do. But if you can see that there's these little circles right here, and those are going to go to specific parts of my head. So I'll move this around. We use what's called a 10-20 system. And it's, let's see, there's little beautiful little ear clips as well that will replace these earrings where we're actually doing it. And it collects information from these 19 channels, which is this beautiful rainbow cord. And we plug it into the computer, and then it can analyze each of these channels individually. And so these have a little metal circle here, and we put an electrogel in the little, in the little thing. This is like a blunt tip needle. So it just goes in the canal, puts a little squirt of electroconductive gel that helps collect the electrical activity from the scalp of my brain up into that little disc, into the wire, into the computer, and lets us look at what's going on in each of these little spots of the brain.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And then what we can do is really high-end mathematics and computation, which can help us triangulate based on the different parts of the brain and kind of figure out what's going on in different spots. So if you want to cue that the screen that we talked about before, that we showed right before this is kind of what the raw data looks like. And this is actually a picture of my brain. So, these are just each of these 19 little channels, those little circles that we saw, and this is the data that's collected. And this one at the very bottom that looks like this, we also collect your heart rate. So we're trying to see how your brain and your heart and how cohesive it is, and heart rate variability, so we can track all of that. And so kind of as we go through, this is just kind of a little bit of what that can look like.
Are those your thoughts?
It's not quite that simple, but our thoughts are conveyed, and there are different things at different times. And we even see a little bit of, this is called artifact, where I actually blinked in the EEG. So some of this will get, when we actually clean it up computationally, it'll kind of snip up the eye blinks and some of the other, like when we swallow or whatnot. But yeah, I just showed you what it looks like raw. Then what happens, I'm going to click on another one, is then we throw it through the computer, and we can see what's happening at each of these different channels, and it maps to kind of like each of those little spots of that, of the head. So, and we can see, kind of a balance of frequencies that, that is happening in different areas. And I actually, have a little thing going on right here, which happens to map with word finding. It's a genetic thing that my family has. My mom has the same marker, and it's something that we've been working with a little bit. But yeah, this shows some of the different activity in the head. And then we also can analyze it like this and kind of see, what's going on with the speed of which the brain is processing information. If anything is out of sync, like I said, it doesn't have to be super serious, but there can be even little pieces that the brain's just not, functioning optimally and can still do a little bit of work.
So these waves and these changes and this data all comes together, and that's how you formulate your treatment for someone. So how does that data translate into how you treat a patient?
So basically, like I said, we kind of put that raw data in, and it also, we can compute it to kind of target the different areas, and based off of that, so like I show that my brain has a little bit of irregularities at the F7. It just runs a little slow. So word finding, sometimes you might hear it here. I know the word is on the tip of my tongue. It doesn't always come out. That's just like, that part is just not running optimally. And so, we could do some treatment, and I have done some treatment, and it works better, but it's still, that's actually some genetic wiring on my part. So what we would do is we would very specifically target different parts of the brain. So in that situation, we'd be targeting kind of over here in this F7 region to kind of like speed it up and kind of get it moving a little bit faster. Different brains may have different profiles. Like anxiety might be way too much fast way, where it's running a little bit too hyper, a little bit too anxious. And so we would want to like slow that down, and we would target parts of that brain where we'd be sending some different kind of frequencies that kind of calm down and soothe the brain. So if you want to click back to the screen share, this is something from my education report, but it's basically showing that the brain naturally produces a variety of frequencies. So, and we should produce a little bit of everything. And when the brain is in balance, it's kind of like this symphony being in tune, and everything sounds really great. So we should, when we're creating delta, we do that a lot in our sleep. It's kind of slower wave activity. It's identified with, self-awareness and sleep. Theta, it's more of like the diffuse focus. It can be that dreamy state, kind of being that creative state at times.
Is that the one people are trying to target with like meditation and subconscious messaging?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they tend to do that between that alpha theta loop, okay? Because the theta is kind of more that subconscious, and the alpha is the gap between the subconscious and the conscious. So they do a lot with alpha, but yes, really more meditation is going to be in this alpha state, but they are trying to be able to connect that theta alpha, and then with the beta. So alpha is our bridge between the subconscious and the conscious. So actually when we if we get an EEG and we ask someone to meditate, you'll see more alpha, beautiful alpha waves, high amplitude alpha waves start to be produced. So that's what we see there. So, and alpha is kind of like the idle state. We're in that peaceful, calm. Like I said, it's that bridge between the subconscious and the conscious. So it's a really great place to be. It can have both internal focus and external. Gotcha. Then when we move up into the beta stage, the low beta, that's when we're like focusing. So if I were trying to write a report or do a cognitive task, we should be shifting out of that dreamy state, and we should be shifting into that like more focus. So creating a little bit more fast wave activity. And then, these just kind of speed up as we go along, beta 2, 3, and so forth. So these are more external focus. If we have a little bit of this, you see up in beta 3, that can be some hypervigilance, where people are kind of stuck in that, like their brain's a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit too fast, and so forth.
Maybe
and so
in a little fight or flight, like
yes. Exactly. Kind of be startled. They're kind of staying there. They don't have enough of this calm and chill, So what will happen is, if the brain is stuck in that, or it's like really imbalanced in that way, then we may feed some sort of, frequencies specifically to reset that, or to kind of help get the brain back in balance, because it's creating too much over here and not enough over here.
I've known people like that, people who have had like maybe chaotic childhoods, or people who have been in the military. They were always having to be on alert while deployed. So now we're in a restaurant and they're waiting for a bowl to drop, or, what I'm saying? They're just always this hypervigilance about them that doesn't serve them anymore in their current environment. So that's fascinating.
Yes, we work a lot with a lot of people with trauma, and we can do a lot to kind of help reset that nervous system. We do vagus nerve stimulation, which can kind of help, create with that parasympathetic, sympathetic balance to help reset the nervous system. And so, that's one profile that we may see, where that they might just be too much of that over aroused, kind of anxious. They can't kind of calm and chill. And so, we kind of help their brain and their bodies kind of reset and get into a more balanced place. And something did usually happen with these clients that caused them to kind of be in that place, and it was functional at the time, and now it's not helping them. They can't sleep well, and there's other things going on because their brain can't shut down, can't calm and relax. And so we try to help get them to that place to help rest.
I love that you can target that part of the brain and say, this is where the issue is coming from, and we're going to give it some direct treatment. And I think just people in general need to understand how their brains work a little bit better in order to have those solutions. So tell me, how often do you remap And do you adjust treatment based on that remapping?
Yes. So usually what we do with neurotherapy, with neuromodulation, it depends. If we are doing an intensive, which if someone's coming in maybe from far away and they're doing an intensive treatment model, they might receive up to 2 treatments a day for 5 days. So that's a lot of treatment in a week. We'll actually remap at the end of the week because we can see the needle move. So what the brain looked like before, it may not look like after 10 sessions, especially when we're doing it really intensively like that. So then we will remap. We'll compare the first one to the second one. We're also tracking symptoms, and we may tweak the placement. Like, okay, we calmed down a little bit here, but now we need to go to the back. This is also over aroused. There are some trauma markers, sparks, things that we can look at, and we can kind of shift around based on what we're seeing and based on the symptoms. If we're doing a more traditional, like 3 times a week treatment, we will probably rescan after between 15 and 20 sessions, because the movement doesn't happen as quickly as it does in the intensive sessions. So because we're doing a lot of treatment in a short amount of time, and it really does move the needle very quickly. And so we readjust quicker as well.
We love quick results, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And so once that person gets to where everything's kind of evened out, they just come back if they have an issue?
Yeah, I mean, the whole goal of neuromodulation is to, help with neurogenesis and rebalancing the brain. And then once the brain kind of gets it, it kind of learns by experiencing. So that brain that we talked about before that was a little over-aroused, producing maybe too much beta, and it starts to kind of get a little bit more of that parasympathetic frequencies in there and kind of calm back down and kind of rebalance. The brain kind of figures that out and it can hold it on its own. So barring the fact that there's no injury or metabolic crisis or anything like that, the clients will kind of taper down slowly, and we're watching for their symptoms to kind of stay good, and we slowly ease out, and there's not really need to come back unless something, shifts and change.
I really appreciate you, Dr. Putney. This is all so fascinating. I loved your graphs and your examples, and we thank you so much for breaking that down so clearly. We appreciate you and your expertise. See you next time.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Transformative Neurotherapy Podcast with Dr. Heather Putney. Remember, your brain isn't supposed to hold you back. It's supposed to power you forward. So stop letting it crash your party and start letting it do its job. If you're ready to optimize brain health, sharpen your focus, and age like a fine wine, schedule your free consultation today at transformativeneurotherapy.org or call us at 412-204-7397. Because here, healing happens faster. See you next time.